I'm Cara.
And I'm Danny.
And this is Art with a Lisp. I am a certified life coach and owner of Press Play Coaching.
And I have a Lisp.
The purpose of this podcast is to celebrate artists, talk about their work, their struggles, and their taboo relationship with money. If you're a creative person who believes you can never make money off your craft, we hope it inspires you to hear the stories of the ones who are doing it.
Do it.
Hi, this is Cara and Danny. This is Art with the Lisp. It's our very first episode. We are super excited to be doing this. I don't know about you, but I was waking up in the middle of the night because I was so excited. Like the night before the first day of school.
No, I was
You were fine?
asleep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're going to notice many differences between Danny and I during the course of this podcast, and have fun with that.
I forgot.
Forgot what?
That the podcast was today. And then I got a reminder. I was like, oh, okay.
Guys, this is going to be real fun. So, okay. Who are we? And why should you care? Well, you don't have to care. But I'm Cara Zuraski. I live in Jersey City, New Jersey. I am a life coach. I also do personal assisting as a separate job. And yeah. And Danny?
I'm Danny. I live around here. And I have a Lisp. That's it.
And what do you do for work?
I dig holes for a living.
And so do I, but in a metaphorical way.
In a literal way. I just dig holes.
Yeah. Yeah, check out his phone. He took a picture put a picture on Instagram, and I was like...
It's dirty.
Is there fog in here? Because according to that picture, it looks like there is. So, yeah, we are childhood friends. We've known each other since we were teenagers.
Yep.
Right? So that's a long time.
We're from Union City.
We were born and raised in Union City.
Well, I wasn't born. I was imported. The finer things in life are always imported.
From?
Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico.
And I was imported from Hoboken for St. Mary's Hospital. So that's our relationship. We've known each other a long time. And let's talk about, some people have asked, like, why did we start this podcast?
So I'm not creative at all. I know we were talking about this a little bit. I do not feel like I'm creative, but as you know, many of our friends are very, very talented. Mm-hmm. And it's a wide range of creativity. And during pandemic, I had a Zoom thing, like a Zoom gallery from across the nation. Everybody came in, and I really enjoyed it. And I wanted to do that again. Obviously, I'm not going to open up a gallery, and I don't want to do Zoom.
Why is that obvious?
I don't got the money or time or skills. Yeah. I don't. Well, now, yeah.
That's called a limiting belief.
Yeah.
And coaching.
Well, and then I wanted to do a podcast because I don't know why. I know I don't like public speaking. I'm very self-conscious of the way I speak. So naturally, I should do a podcast. That was my...
It does, yeah, you don't check a lot of boxes, but what was the root cause of, like, what really inspired you to... Because you came to me with this idea. Actually, if we just go back a little bit. I started my life coaching business in April of last year, and at the time, Danny was like, I'm like, hey, I started a new business. Danny's like, have you thought about a podcast? And I'm like, I'm starting a business, kind of focusing on that right now. Then like 3 months later, like, hey, how's it going? So what is life coaching? Hey, anyway, did you think about a podcast? And I'm like, dude, what's with the podcast? And then finally, it was like 2 months ago or something?
2 months ago. A year later, I was like, I really want to do a podcast, and this is the theme. Well, I think that you have a way of like communicating with people, and you're always doing things with art, and I'm always like trying to analyze it. Mm-hmm. So I want a podcast I could listen to. So I'm constantly trying to look for a podcast. I generally just listen to one, and those who knows me, they know what it is. But yeah, so I was like, I called you up. I'm like, this is an idea I have. It's a podcast based on art where you interview different artists and they come in. Mm-hmm. The idea of that came from, you know who FuzzyTube is? No. So he's a YouTuber, and I've never watched any of his things, but I like watching little YouTube documentaries. Mm-hmm. And he was like one of the first really big pranksters. Okay. And then he kept coming out with different channels. and they were very successful. So he had one channel, and this is like right before podcasting was a thing. Because I know Logan Paul or whatever his name is.
Oh yeah.
He now has a podcast, but it was before podcasting was a really big thing. He came out with kind of like a video podcast, and it was a disaster.
Okay.
And then like mental health hit him. He was a complete mess.
Okay.
But something that the guy said that I thought about was he would have been very successful if he would have had that interview with other YouTubers. It would have led him on.
So he did a podcast by himself?
Yeah, of himself and of his channels.
Okay.
So it was just too much content about him. And that's what led me to think, like, I know a lot of good artists because of the Zoom thing I did. That it would be nice having them talk to them about their work. Where are they in life? How did they get, where they are?
Right.
And who would do it? And I'm like, I think Cara would do it.
Cool. Yeah, you're like, she doesn't have enough on her plate. She's just got a full-time job and a business, but no, but I remember you saying specifically, like, you want to connect with the artists in the community.
Yeah.
So that's something that really resonates with me because a little background about me, I have always been into art in different forms. I used to do drawing. I used to do a little bit of painting. I'm not that crazy about painting. Photography. I did theater. I did dance.
You had a band?
I had a band. My husband and I actually were in a band before we started dating. So I've always loved music, and I'm a singer-songwriter. So I have an appreciation for those different avenues of art. And I love to go to local events. I love to go to poetry readings and open mics and art galleries.
I do none of that.
Surprisingly, I don't really like museums, though. This is like
museums.
unpopular opinion, but it just feels like too much of art. Like, I feel like art there should be just the ratio. I'm only one person. So to walk into like the Met, I'm just like, this is a lot.
I think you have micro and you have macro.
Yeah.
So the thing about this area, especially after COVID, I think COVID, everybody was home and decided to revisit their creative side.
Yeah.
And now you have an explosion of, like, the whole work life has changed, right, after COVID. And people are now wanting to express themselves beyond their work.
Yeah, that's interesting because one of the things that led me to creating my business and even just being in the space where I could entertain that idea, because I never wanted to own a business before. I always wanted to help people. I've always like talked to them and asked them questions and wondered like why they do what they do. But I was very stifled creatively up until about like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And one of the things I did was I took a singing class, like an online singing class with Steve Mackey. He's like a vocal coach to the stars. He has a great class on, I think it's called Monthly. I don't know. But that was so that kind of opened me up a little bit to that. We had to do videos of ourselves singing and we had to post it on YouTube. And that was a whole like, it took me out of my comfort zone. Then I took 2 acting classes, and they were virtual too because this is the pandemic. So that kind of prepared me too for like being present, being visible to other people, and performing, and like all of that kind of warmed me up to where I am now. And now I have to like have a social media account, and I'm posting, and that was all very difficult for me to do just a few years ago. So I really appreciate how art can open us up and also help us in other avenues and in the ways that we connect with other people. So we both have an appreciation for art. Something interesting about Danny, which is why I was like, I think this might actually work, is because, yeah, he doesn't have any like obvious artistic ability, as he says, but he's super good with interpreting art. Like, I remember one time we were doing a jam session and you were here.
Oh, yes.
And I played one of my songs. And you were like, is this about that relationship that you had and the way that this was? And I was like, whoa, dude, what? Like the insights that you had, and the song was written very kind of abstractly. I mean, one of the things that I do with my art that I struggle with is like to be a little too vague or like too abstract, which is a little bit of a protection, which is why I love going to these poetry readings where people are just getting really into it. I'm like, wow, I just love that. But anyway, that was a moment where I was like, okay, Danny, I see your superpower. Like, and then we went to that art gallery recently.
Yes.
Eonda, and Danny just, impressed these gallery owners with his insights. So that's why we're doing it. We love art, we love the community, and we want to connect with local artists. For me, it's also really close to my heart because in my coaching business, I work with artists and empaths and creative coaches, and I have seen how a lot of them hold themselves back. And I think when they can do the work that we do is to help them build confidence and to help them feel like a little more familiar around money and to stop demonizing money, because that I think is something that we have been embedded with at a very early age. Like I always say, like when we're in high school and people are like, what do you want to do? And I'd be like, an artist. And they'd be like, that's cute, but what do you really want to do? Because that's not a real job and you need to make money. And so that thought holds us back so many. And I don't know if a lot of you can relate to that, but everyone I've talked to has said that they had that same story of like people discouraging it because it didn't seem like practical.
I didn't. So originally it was just a podcast about art, and then you brought the money thing, and I was like, nah. For the same reason, like artists don't want to talk about their money. But then the more, you brought up some good points. We talked to a few artists that night, and I just thought about some of the people that we know that might actually be here tonight. Not tonight, but eventually. They have a really poor relationship with money, and it boggles my mind. Like
I wouldn't say poor. I would say complicated.
Complicated because they're gonna get offended.
No, because that's like kind of a judgment. Like I wouldn't say it's poor. I would say, like for me, I didn't think for a long time.
Cara and I don't always agree on everything.
Well, I use more neutral language, especially now that I'm a coach, because
it's a poor relationship.
Are you calling them poor too? On top of that,
I mean.
No, I think a lot of it's interesting in the intake forms that we have with our like these future guests filling out, and it's asking them about money. Like the conversation literally went, "Hey, Cara, do you want to do a podcast with local artists?" I'm like, "Yeah, cool. We should talk to them about money because I know that this is kind of a controversial topic. I know that it causes some discomfort, and maybe some of you even now, or if you saw on our Instagram, or if you're watching this now, you're kind of like, money. Like some of the feedback I get is like, oh, I don't feel right if I'm charging for it, or I'm just doing this for my own enjoyment and I don't want to charge for it. Like it takes something away from it. It takes some of the magic out, or I don't want to feel forced. I don't want to be pushed to deadlines. So I understand all of that. But then we also have feedback from artists who are making money or who have made money, and they're like, yeah, it's a craft, and I love to get paid for it. And actually, I want to do it more, because the more money you can make from it, the more you get to do it all the time instead of doing it as a side project. To be some artists who are working as artists full time, like feel a lot of fulfillment. So
an anonymous story. I think this predates the podcast. I'll let this person be person A. This person is very creative. He has a very creative mind, and again, I think he's very poor when it comes to money. Okay, Danny. Like, to help him out, you connected him with someone who did, like, woodwork.
Yeah.
Because this person wanted to do woodwork as a side job and whatever. And you connected him with a person that does woodwork and makes money off it.
Yes.
And to kind of encourage him.
My friend Steven Escamilla. We're going to put his little @ here. Check him out. He's incredible.
Is that still there? Okay.
Nick will put it right here.
So he's making money off his dream, off his art, and you connected person A with him because he has a very poor relationship with money. And I think that's one of the things I was thinking about is you genuinely want to help people that are creative to be more balanced with money. And then growing up, there are a lot of artists, especially in our community, a lot of people that just feel guilty about their skill or charging people.
Yes.
Like, I remember I wanted a portrait of Audrey Hepburn, and the person wouldn't take money, but he took a bike. I'm like, oh, okay. There's like bartering.
I know, they get in their own way sometimes.
Yeah, they do.
There's people who want to pay for beautiful pieces of art. And an artist I think it comes from their sensitivity, it comes from their empathy, and they associate money with the man or capitalism, and there's like a dirty feeling to it. But that's like resistance. That's just the name of resistance.
Is it also like a rite of passage? Like you need to be a starving artist, like Van Gogh and
I think some might feel a nobility about it. Like I'm a start, like it makes it more meaningful to them. But I also think our minds have really weird ways of rationalizing what we do and trying to. If I say there's a nobility to being a starving artist, then that makes it okay for me to not try to make money off of it, to not push to what I know I can be. And again, it's not about the money; it's about worth. And that's what I really want to get into with these artists. And it's very interesting getting their feedback. They're at different ranges in their relationship with money. Some of them are like, yeah, I love to make money on my art. Like, it's worth something. And it took a long time for me to get to that point. But now I'm here and it feels right. So there's a lot of perspectives on the value of money as it pertains to art. And
which type of art, too. Because I think, like, I know who the Dali and Picasso, they were all part of, like, this college group, and they were all starving artists, and they hit it really big. And I think a lot of artists are like that. They're like, well, they were successful and that's their path, so I'm going to be this way. But then you look at musical artists and they're about the money. Like a lot of them are like
yeah, maybe some. I mean, there's a lot of people, a lot of musicians who don't make money, but yeah, that goes to another thing that we're going to talk to them about too, is their identity as artists, because a lot of creative people don't feel comfortable calling themselves artists, and I just think that's so interesting. I think it ties back to being discouraged from becoming an artist at such a young age, and I think a lot of times they'll think like, oh, an artist is like Leonardo da Vinci or like Michelangelo. Like, that is one. Those are examples of artists. But I heard Hassan Minhaj say in an interview recently, like, that an artist is somebody who has something to say and they need to express it. And I really like that definition because it's it encompasses a lot, you know? So if somebody has something like, and that could even apply to you. I mean, I don't know if that gives you a different perspective on whether you're an artist or not. But I know for me, like, doing this podcast is satisfying some of that. Doing my coaching, there's a creative element to coaching. I'm pulling from the ether, like basing off what they're saying. And I love that alchemy that comes from that. And so, yeah, so we're going to talk to them about, do you call yourself an artist or not? Some of them do, some of them don't. And I think we'd have to kind of create like an algorithm or something, but I feel like if you don't identify yourself as an artist, it's that much harder to make money doing art. Usually the ones who say, yes, I do call myself an artist, are the ones who have made money off of their art. There's a link there.
So I think another thing about the money is that a lot of creative people are introverts, and the way they communicate with others is through their art. So you might see them and you're like, wow, this person is really outgoing, but they'll even tell you that's a persona, that's their stage person. Someone like Jay-Z, you see him on stage and he has all these people, but his actual personality, he's a very quiet person to himself. So I think a lot of artists are like that. They don't want the attention, they want their work the attention. So they don't feel like they feel guilty taking money from like their work. There's a little disassociated I don't know if that makes sense, but there's a little dissociation between what they create and who they are. Yeah,
that's interesting, because I'm reading the War of Art right now, and one of the things he talks about is like having this identity. Like Madonna, he's like, Madonna's not at home wearing like her conical bras and like her outfits. She understands that is a persona. That is some what you think she does?
Have you seen her last thing?
Okay, but the point is that she's like, she doesn't confuse herself for being, I'm sure even she could create a distinction between the stage Madonna and like Madonna.
I don't think so. I think she's gone.
Okay, well, the idea,
I'm super
and maybe
judgmental.
it applies more, like, think about Michael Jackson. He said he felt the most comfortable on stage, and then in real life he was like cripplingly shy. But anyway, what he was saying
unless you're a little boy
in the War of okay, wow, Denny. What he was saying in the book is that it's important to make a distinction between like the work and you. Like Madonna doesn't think she is that Madonna. She employs that Madonna. Like it becomes a tool. It's a way for you to communicate something to the world, but you don't have to enmesh it in your own identity. It's like, I've created this work. This is what it is.
So Lady Gaga said something once that she actually almost gets offended when someone calls her Stefania, which I think is her real name.
Stephanie. Mm-hmm.
Stephanie. It'll take her a second or two to realize that is her actual name. So I think that people get lost in the persona that they created.
Yeah, that's where the danger lies. Because then if people reject that persona, then they reject you. Whereas if you are an artist creating something and then people reject that, you're like, okay, they're rejecting that. I am still this person. I still have all of these other things that people don't know about because that's my private world, you know? So that could be that could hinder them if they do enmesh those things.
So, I listened to the Moth, right? So I believe it was the Moth. I may find a person. I'll put him right here.
Nick's gonna have fun editing
Yeah,
this.
yeah. There was a Scottish rapper that actually went to the Moth and told his story, and it was very interesting because he adopted this personality. He even developed an American accent, so people could take him serious as a rapper. Where he felt in order to be, and then he met Eminem backstage and pretended like he knew him, and then his career started to take off. So one day he was on stage, and it was like 4 years later, his girlfriend left him because he took this persona 24 hours, and then his family kind of started distancing themselves from him, and he felt after 4 years that he lost who he was. He developed this persona, and it took over, and the person that he was before is no longer there. So he went on stage and started talking like he hadn't talked in 4 years, with his Scottish accent.
Interesting.
And he lost contracts, but he still kind of does some underground things.
Yeah.
The point is, I think there are several different kinds of artists when it comes to creating a persona. Some get overrun by it.
Yeah.
And I think some stand away from it. And those are definitely the ones that don't want to make money off their art, because they're like, this creativity could not come from me. I think there's also like a self-esteem issue, like, but this is wonderful, but it didn't come from me.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. We can talk about that with the artists that we have. Like, how do they perceive their work, and how separate or similar is it to them as a person? So we're clearly passionate about art. We're clearly passionate about our community. And in Jersey City, this community is amazing. I love the culture here and like all of the local artists and the events. We will also be interviewing some artists who are not local to this area. And the idea is really just to inspire other artists or aspiring artists to know like they have a lot more options than they think they might, and to hear the stories of people who have done it and how they've done it differently and what mattered to them and how did they overcome certain obstacles. We hope that that's going to inspire you and that you'll take something away from it. So you told me something recently and you said, let's hold this for the podcast. And I was like, okay. About a recent poetry event that you attended and how you felt.
Right. So we're looking for talented people. We want to interview them. So one of the things we're doing more artistic things. And I went to, I think it's the second time I've gone there, but I did the same thing the first time. This poetry reading, but I left midway because it's a bit of imposter syndrome, where I don't feel like I'm a creative person. So why am I here? I don't write. I don't write stories. These poems that are coming out are really great. One of the poet, briefly spoke about imposter syndrome before he read his poem. And I'm like, yeah, man, I don't belong here. But they're really welcoming, and they say hi to everybody. They introduce themselves, but I just try to keep to myself. But I don't feel like I have anything to contribute in there.
Yeah.
In that space.
Okay. So what I have to say about that is that as an artist and as a performer, it is so important to have people in the audience who appreciate the work. And for some reason, I'm thinking about comedians, and like comedians are so competitive with each other, but like, where would they be without the fans, without people there to laugh and get the jokes and be into it? That is the currency, is people who are there present and are connecting with what's being said. So people like you is exactly who poets and artists want around, because you're somebody who's like, hey, I'm not here to promote myself. I'm not getting up and performing. I am literally just here to support you and to appreciate you and to sometimes give feedback, which they really love because they want to know how it's being received a lot of times. So I think that's a very valuable currency for artists and performers to have people like you around.
So I don't want to say the name of the people that are organizing it or the location because I don't have their permission. But one of the...
We can, and then just edit it out because I think it's a very cool thing what they're doing. I haven't been there yet. I'm going soon. It's Espresso in Union City.
At Thursday
nights at 7 p.m., I believe. It's called The Poetry Unfold, and it's run by a poet named Ed Magian.
Oh, I was going to look him up, but yeah.
So it's really cool what they're doing. They're bringing a lot of the local artists and poets, and what was it like?
Well, what Ed does, and we're going to like bleep him out if he says no, which I doubt. We'll have to find like a duck sound. What Ed does...
You have a lot of editing notes, by the way.
Nick's not taking anything down. He wants everyone to feel safe and welcome, which I want to ask him, like, how does he feel about censorship versus free speech? But it's an open space, and one thing that I really enjoy is that after every presentation, like a poet would go up and read whatever, other people get to comment on what they just heard. So he's getting instant feedback and encouragement, which I'm like, yo, that's a really kind thing to do. And, you know, he goes there and I'm like, he doesn't know me, but he said hello. You know, he makes sure that everyone feels welcome. And then he emphasizes it throughout the night. He's like, if you've been here before, make others feel welcome, introduce yourselves. That's really nice. Like, that's really nice. I'm going to leave.
On that note,
I'm out. I don't belong here.
Yeah, what made you leave? That feeling of imposter syndrome?
Yeah, the feeling of like, man, these people are really creative. And I think like as you get older, especially with my field of work, it became less creative and more just whatever my trade is.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like I belong here anymore. Like maybe 20 years ago, yeah. But not anymore. And that's not the feeling because at Espresso, they're very, very low key. Union City. It reminds me of a cafe shop we had when we were in high school. What is it? Havana Bay Cafe.
Where was that?
It was on Kennedy.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on Kennedy where ShopRite is now.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that.
You know the overpass to 95?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was right there.
Where the Pizza Hut is now?
Where the Pizza Hut is now.
Okay, we're getting uber local right now.
Yeah. But, who else is going to listen to it?
Oh, yes. No, I do
Havana
remember.
Bay Cafe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
remember?
I was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. I didn't know that was called what it was called.
Yeah, he had a big 9x10 mural of Cuba, and it was all abstract, and really cool guy.
Yeah, that was cool.
Really cool cafe. He had poetry readings, but you just went there and felt at ease. And that's kind of what I feel at this place. That's
really cool.
Yeah.
That's really nice. I don't, like I said, I haven't been there yet, but from my experience being at other places, performing with like, you know, at open mics.
Last thing. And I love hot chocolate. They made really good hot chocolate.
That's good to know. It's good to know. That reminds us that we're going to do it. We'll talk about that in a second. But I know that in the past I've performed at places, and sometimes, not all people are like this, but sometimes I got the distinct feeling that the other people were just kind of like, yeah, whatever you're saying, I'm just waiting to perform. You know what I mean? And that's one style. So for me, when I would be there to perform, like, it was really nice to see that there were people who were just there to listen and to receive, you know? So again, that just points to how, like, you or people like you who may not have like that creative outlet yet, like, it's such an important role in the world of artists and in that culture to have people who are just there to appreciate. So there's not that competition or like, just like, it's like people who are like talking, they're just waiting to talk, you know, they're listening. Yeah. They're not really listening. They're just waiting for their turn. So I think that's important.
Another thing I liked about that night, and I don't know if this is Ed's doing or the coffee shop's doing, just the location, but you think of Union City and you're like, oh, it's a bunch of Hispanics. But if you're from this area, you know that not all Hispanics have the same culture. So it's a ton of people from many different backgrounds.
Yeah.
And then Union City also has Asians. We have like Hasidic Jews. When I went there that night, there was a wide range variety of age group. There were people that were young, people that were probably retired,
Very cool.
many different races, and they're just getting there just to perform their art.
Yeah.
And they have this one thing in common, which is like writing, creative writing.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is very Hudson County, where it's just a pocket of different backgrounds all together in one spot.
I mean, I love the diversity of this area. That's like my favorite thing. But when you called and you said, "Oh, I have imposter syndrome," I thought you were actually talking about the podcast. Like, this is a new thing. It's
Oh
a
no,
creative thing.
with the podcast too. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like if it wasn't for Julia, I probably would be out. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do this.
So what did our friend Julia tell you that made you decide to do it?
Yeah, she cheered me on because I was like, you know what, maybe you should do it. Like,
Was this before or after she laughed hysterically when you told her that we were doing a podcast? Because she told me that she had that reaction.
No,
she's like, "Oh, you two, okay,
okay, yeah,
all right, yeah. Sure, that'll be interesting."
This is after that.
She knows that we annoy each other so much,
and we don't agree on many things.
Yes.
This is after that because I felt like, you know what, maybe I could pay for some of the equipment, have some suggestions in the background. I don't like public speaking, and I feel like I'm not a creative person. Like, what do I have to say? So I asked Julia if she wanted to be the co-host, and she's like, no, this is your idea, you do it. And she
very Julia. I'm gonna pass.
I'm gonna pass. Her kitchen is phenomenal.
Focused, Danny.
Yeah, but it's great.
Julia, congrats on your new place.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was I saying?
She said, "It's your idea, you do it."
Yeah, it's your idea, you do it. I'm just thinking about a cement countertop she has. Anyway, it's your idea, you do it.
The man who digs holes.
Yeah. And she goes, I think you're basically what you said. You have a lot of insights, and you do appreciate art a lot because Julia and I, we have gone to many art shows.
I just noticed, Dan, this is so cute.
Yeah, it's one's red.
You gave me a red and you have a blue one.
Yeah, and I have a blue shirt. Well, sweater.
Cute. Some people will not like that. They're like, but why?
We have ADD.
We do that. We literally do.
But
okay.
I was thinking about that she said it. I'm like, she's right. And she just gave me like that push that I needed. Cause she also said she felt bad. I don't want to make her feel bad, but she's like, I feel bad. Like, was it something I said? I was like, no, it's not you. It's just I don't feel like who would listen to me?
Well, whoever's listening now, thank you. Thank you for getting this far into our first episode.
I also don't want to get fired, so there are probably going to be some edits to like some of the things I've said.
We'll see. Honestly, I've listened to podcasts. I think hearing people talk normally and openly, there's something about it, especially you're on a long drive or you're on your lunch break and you're going for a walk or
He's like little boys.
You're food shopping. I listen to podcasts while I'm food shopping sometimes. But anyway, I'm glad that we're doing it. We have a lot of excited guests who are already booked and on the schedule. We're going to be recording every other Sunday. So that's gonna be great. It'll give us a little bit of space to have our editing team, Are
we gonna talk about the segments?
Yeah. So tell them about the segment idea that you had.
So my segment idea is a hole in the wall. And it's because if you're hearing this and never met me, I love to eat. If you're seeing this,
you have eyes.
You have eyes. So I'm constantly going to like little places and, getting pierogies in Harworth.
And Hocus. We have a running joke that Danny will call you and want the most random food in the most random far place. So we're just like, hey guys, you want pierogies in Hocus or like hot dogs in Mawa? Like, why, Danny? Like, there's so much great local food. But anyway.
But so I want to call it a hole in the wall, and I just want to go to different local restaurants for now that I go to and I enjoy their food, and I want to speak for like a minute. And it's not like a sponsor thing. It's just like, hey, I really appreciate this location and this is why. And kind of give like my own Google review. Yeah,
so feature a local business, support local businesses. We're supporting local artists and non-local artists. And what I want to know, if you guys can comment, is we have a disagreement about this, calling the segment "Hole in the Wall." Because usually I do agree that when you use the term "hole in the wall," people are like, oh, it's going to be something good. You're not expecting it. But I also feel like if I had like a well-established restaurant, I might be like, really? Hole in the wall?
But I don't want to eat at some restaurant that's too bougie and thinks like, oh, I'm not a hole in the wall.
There's some great restaurants that, I mean, what defines bougie? I don't know. Do you only go to holes in the wall, or do you go to like nicer restaurants? I do not go
to chain restaurants. Maybe once in
a while.
Do
you think that's what I mean by nice restaurants?
Fridays.
I don't go to these fancy 4-star restaurants like Houlihan's.
Applebee's.
No, I mean, like, I'm thinking of, like, for example, we have this restaurant called the Franklin that I've been to twice in the last 2 weeks, 2 different locations. And I'm like, it'd be great to feature them. Would they like being called hole in the wall? I don't know. What do you guys think? Tell us what you think about that.
It doesn't really matter. I'm still going to call it hole in the wall.
Okay, we have another segment called Pay It Forward, where at the end of our interview with our artists, we're going to ask them, who would you like? Who do you think should be a guest on the show? Like, whose work or artistry do you appreciate and you think would make a good guest? And then we'll have their referral and we'll try to get that person on the show. So that's that. What else did I want to talk about? Some of the upcoming guests that we have Ben Figueroa. I never know whether to call him Ben or Benedicto. His Instagram is Benedicto Figueroa, and I've known him since high school, and I'm really excited to have him on. He's going to be our first guest, and he is a multidisciplinary poet. He is a multidisciplinary artist. I always get tongue-tied with that. He's a poet. He just recently had an art installation at Smush Gallery, and he's just super talented and super cool. He's like a fashion icon, too. And then his girlfriend, Caitlin Halpern, who is the owner of the gallery. She's a dancer. She's also a multidisciplinary artist. She's an amazing writer. So we're going to have her talk about money and her art and her work. We have painters. We have Candace, yes, who owns a flower arrangement business. I'm sure she could explain it much more eloquently than that.
I'm excited to have her here because she's a really great photographer. So when she started her whole flower business, I was taken aback because I felt that she could have pursued a career in photography, especially because so many people are. Yeah. But I think she also has imposter syndrome when it comes to photography. She's like, I don't think it's that good.
We'll ask her. We'll find out. I think that's great. And her husband, James, is an amazing artist. And my friend Erin, who owns a hair salon in Philly, she's artistic in everything she does. So we have some great guests. We're looking forward to sharing them with you. Please put any comments about who you think we should have on. We're always looking for future guests. And
if you want to be on, follow the questionnaire.
Yes, we have a sequence. Check out the link in our bio. Our Instagram is @Art with the Lisp.
These are the steps. Step 1's right here, Nick. Step 2's right here. Step 3's down here. Yeah. And then right here is the handle.
This is step 4, is being here with us. And yeah, we can't wait to crank out more podcast episodes for you. We're very passionate about what we're doing, and your support means everything to us. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for your time.